Okay, today we're going to demonstrate a little bit on how to make lefse. Lefse is a Scandinavian tradition that we have been having since my parents, and before that we're going to be using a recipe that my mother and dad used when they used to make lefse many years ago. I think we've been making lefse maybe now about 40 years, and so I'll go through a little bit on how we prepare it. Last night I cooked the potatoes, and I peeled them, I cooked them, and mashed them, and then I rice them. And I use a ricer similar to this, where you open up and you put the potatoes into the ricing machine, and then you squeeze the potatoes out, and that takes care of all the lumps, so you get rid of that. So we will get started on how we mix it. So the recipe that we use, like I said, is from my mother that they used, and so we've gotten to use the same one. So I take 4 cups of riced potatoes. I'm using an old bowl that came from my wife's family, her grandmother, and it really works nice for doing this. So I use 4 cups of potatoes, and I like to push the potatoes in just a little bit so I get a full 4 cups. So I got 3, and this is number 4. So I set them aside, and then I put in 2 cups of flour, and with that,
I can see you're not measuring precisely.
oh, I just get close.
That's how family recipes go.
And then I use a half a stick of butter, or some sort of lard. We like to use butter. So I put in a half a stick of butter, and then I use about, I would say, a teaspoon of salt. I think this is close to a teaspoon. So we put that all together, and now we have to take a pie cutter or a pastry cutter, and I cut that all together to make it into a ball before we get started. So this is the step that probably is one of the more difficult, because it takes muscles to keep cutting on this thing. As you can see, it looks like it's pretty dry, and you'll be amazed, I think, when we get done on what it looks like. because there is no liquid that we use in our recipe when we make lefse. Takes a little while to get this process done, but it won't be too long. If you can get a really good pastry cutter, this becomes a lot easier. I used to have some cheaper ones that would bend and it was rather difficult. As you can see it's starting to get a little more moist. And the consistency that we can use it to put it together, and we will eventually make a log out of these so we can cut it up and have ready for our baking process, which is what we will do next. So it's almost there. You can kind of see that, how it's getting to get a little stickier. Takes lots of flour once we get going on the next step to make sure that it doesn't stick to the pastry board. Well, I think that should be good enough. So now I'll take and try to make it into some sort of a ball. This is just the tradition that one of the traditions that we have that we like to do right before Thanksgiving and Christmas time every year. As you can see, it's now all sticks together. My wife lets me use the kitchen for this process, but you'll notice that when we start to make the lefse itself, she kicks me out into the garage, and I've got to do it out there, and you'll kind of see why, because flour flies everywhere and she doesn't like the flour in the house. So now we'll move out into the garage. Okay, we've now gotten out into the garage, so I got my beginning of my log, and now I'm going to try to make it down into a smaller longer log, and then we will cut it up into the pieces that we make into the lefse. And one of the reasons that I do this is that it makes it so that the pieces of dough that I have is nice and smooth around the outside, and it helps make the lefse round. As you know, I'm trying to take out if there's any air bubbles in the inside, because then if you have air bubbles inside, your pieces will have a harder time rolling them out into a nice round lefse. Being round doesn't make them taste any better. It's just a thing of, I guess people that make lefse like to have round ones if they can. Talk about it. Yeah, the pastry board that I use, it's a Bethany pastry cloth that we've purchased, and there's a lot of different places you can go online and find it. Some stores carry it, but then it's got a area on it that's red, and when I make the lefse, you'll notice I try to get it red enough, or thin enough, so you can read through it. Okay, now I'm ready to start cutting up what I like to do is I take a little off of each end and put them together. They're always the most difficult to roll. So I put those two pieces together, and that will become a lefse, but they're a little bit more difficult. And then I try to cut them into pieces. You'll see like this, that will eventually get rolled into the lefse. As you notice, I just guesstimate how big to make them. I normally will get 17 to 18 pieces. Right now I got one over there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I should get 18. Yep, 18 pieces. Then I put them over on a cloth that I have. And I put them on this cloth to keep them, I will cover them so that they don't get crusty. I make sure that they're pliable and able to go. So I put those over there, and I'll cover them up. As you notice, I kept one over here. Now I'm going to just scrape my board just a little bit, and you'll notice this is okay. Now we're ready to start rolling the lefse to get it prepared. I use a Bethany pastry cloth, and it has circles of 10-inch, 12-inch, and 14-inch. And you can make your lefse to what size you want. I generally, by the size that I have cut these pieces, I try to get about a 12-inch lefse when I get done. So I put it in my hand, just do a little shaping to make sure that they're nice and round, and then I push down on the board a little bit, and I pick up my rolling pin. And if you notice, I use a rolling pin with a cloth on it, and it's got the grooves underneath it. So this is what I use. And then you just begin to roll out the lefse, and trying to keep it as round as possible right away, because if they start getting off, then it's hard to get it back to being round. Then I pick it up, put a little more flour on the board, and the reason you put flour on is so that they don't stick to the board, because that makes it real difficult. Now it is ready to work with it, and so we will roll it out. In my opinion, part of the key is to get the lefse thin. If you get it thin, I think the lefse are tastier and they are better. So we work on it, and I'm getting out close to that 12-inch. You very seldom will get it perfectly round, but you try to get it as round as you can.
Read the print.
I try to get it thin enough so that I can read the print underneath the lefse, and we're there. So I'm just finishing it off a little bit. So I think that's pretty good. Then I grab a stick, and this is what we call a lefse stick, and we have a couple of them that we use. And then you take and got to roll this up onto the stick. So I lay the stick down, pick up a corner, throw it over, and I begin to roll, and then I hope that it doesn't stick. Right in the middle is where it sticks once in a while. And so I've rolled it up and have it on the stick, Now it's ready to go to the fryer and be fried, and then we get it ready for eating. So,
All right, this part of the process is the frying. That's my job. Now he's rolled it like this, and it makes it easier for me to unroll it onto a very hot frying pan. It's between 475 and 500 degrees. I'll put the first side down, count to 10 in my head. This is just how we do it. And I'll make my first turn, and I'll do it like a fourth that way. It makes it easier to turn. Now, at this point, I might brush off some excess flour, just because I don't like a lot of that on there. And we use just a regular paintbrush. Doesn't look very good right now, but it's a hair paintbrush. Don't get plastic. But it brushes the flour off of that quite nicely. This is just a matter of how dark do you want it underneath, and you keep kind of sitting it up and checking and thinking, oh, all right, that's enough. On that side, I will turn it over, and you see the nice brown spots that are on there. Guess you can make it as dark as you want. And again, this side I will look. Okay, I am making a judgment that I think it looks okay under there to turn. I'll pick it up so that I can perhaps make it like in the half. I carry it over here to our little lefse cozy, which is just a little cloth that I can keep the warm lefse in as I stack it up. We fold it in half, fold it in half again, fold it in half again. The reason we do that is because when you open it up like this, you can take like a pizza cutter right down the middle. You'll have two nice pieces here, and you'll have two nice pieces here. They'll be together here, they'll be separate. So now this will sit in the cozy until we stack them 3 high. So there should be 24 in here when we're done with this particular little cozy. So we'll close it up. This was a handmade cozy by a friend. You can buy them, and they probably will look like that. This is this process. Now it just sits and waits and cools, and then we'll bag it. Okay, at this point we have finished 1 full round of the lefse. Looks like this. We'll continue till we have, each stack has 3 rounds in it. So we're on our way to 24.
Get creative with these luminaries. We used butter containers and a coffee can. Try different types of containers and add some fun stuff to the water. Now it's ready to put in the freezer. Freeze it for 4 hours. Remove it from the container, and you might need hot water to help loosen it up.